Which conspiracy theory do you secretly believe? That the current disillusionment with Biden among young American non-conservatives is at least fanned by and maybe planned by Russian social media operations. The fact that you see more blame put on Biden, while Netanyahu is almost completely absent from reports and social media posts about the war, is just so fucking strange. The fact that it's often intimately linked to the war in Ukraine in the social media narrative is just the cherry on top. It's funny how the Syrian civil war which Russia is involved in did not get mentioned to the same degree in relation to Ukraine. Most retail stores choose to use harsh daylight white light bulbs, as they are less comforting and inviting and encourage you to finish shopping quicker and leave. I believe that one of the only reasons Target is considered to be a better and generally more relaxing store is because most Target locations I've been in use exclusively warm white lighting. Combined with their overall warm color design, this creates a much more relaxed and comforting atmosphere compared to your typical cool color white lit Walmart or wholesaler or whatever. The super rich are actively pushing for and collectively planning for their own non-religious end, times where they think they will survive, but everything and most people suffer and die. Underground lairs, topping off their hidden stockpiles of supplies and weapons, and booby-trapped secret islands manned by a private army to watch the world burn down as they help set it all on fire. And as resources deplete, they will continue to reap massive profits, instead of helping to fix things. Accounts bought accounts created by themselves that comment basic, general and polarizing statements to increase user attention in order to keep user engagement high, so they can sell ads at a higher price. It's also a reason why they aren't in a hurry to ban these bought accounts from foreign political camps. It's an election year, so we will see a high spike in this users and comments. Their names, comments, behavior, subbed content are almost always the same. The blacklist on the former Dixie Chicks wasn't entirely based on their stance on the Iraq War. Country radio just hated the fact that it was a group of women who were the most popular and wanted to realign the genre to their ideal. It had a twofold response. 1. Shows artists what would happen if they speak out of turn. 2. Eliminate the number of women on country radio. It feels like you're only allowed 3 real female superstars on country radio at any time, while the others get shunned. Recycling is a scam, at least in the US. Most plastics are produced and used by giant corporations in production and shipping and will never be seen by the public. Nothing I do is ever gonna change there. The US isn't capable of handling recycling. Most of our recyclables used to go to China, and now they just go to landfills. Most recyclables aren't actually recyclable. Most of the recycling propaganda you see today is actually paid for by the biggest plastic producers. The trillions of dollars printed up over the last 15 years or so went into very few hands. Most of it is stuck in Swiss bank accounts, but it is slowly being used to buy up all single-family housing in this country. The initial phase is complete as hedge funds have slowed down the buying spree, but it will kick back up as all the baby boomers die off. In about 20 years, 75% of all single-family homes will be owned by a corporation or hedge fund. Engineers at Disney World were certain Hillary Clinton would win the 2016 election, so they started working on her animatronic for the Hall of Presidents before the actual election day to save time. Then when Trump won, they panicked and made the internal decision to alter the existing Hillary build rather than start from scratch. If you ever see a picture of the Trump animatronic, you can never unsee it. That the crises around the world in recent years follow some sort of script, or are being orchestrated like a playbook by someone somehow. That a literal robbery of the tax-paying people via increased prices is masqueraded as inflation, when it is just a coordinated cash grab. That really influential and successful people in the entertainment industry are selected to be successful and play a role assigned to them. Continue to work with the financial sector to short said companies and rake in trillions of dollars, while stealing lucrative market share from targets and providing it to a few monopolies. Read Amazon. Amazon killed commerce. Hedge funds help. Editing Sears. Blockbuster. Toys R Us. Circuit City. JCPenney. LD Reagan's war on drugs crackdown meant that Coca-Cola could no longer import the coca leaves for their trademark recipe. So they were forced to roll out new Coke to comply, which failed miserably. And since the Gipper couldn't let a good old-fashioned American corporation suffer, he gave them an exception to keep importing the coca leaf and relaunch their original recipe as Coca-Cola Classic. The RNC are trying to recreate Xi's rise to power with their own party and leaders. One of the ways Xi took power was by having his party disguise another political group that opposed him. When they won, they simply switched sides, of course. I'm paraphrasing a very complicated situation. We see in LA a bunch of people who are running under the Democratic ticket who specifically have Republican backers. Corporate and political power dynamics in a Western world, that once they got to a certain level of sophistication, they didn't have to pull strings behind the scenes anymore, and so they gave it up. The system is self-sustaining on a greater than human timescale now, so the original Illuminati are no longer needed. HIV AIDS was created by the US government to kill off gays and blacks. A fight for equal rights. HIV AIDS appears out of nowhere from a monkey, and they're trying to claim it came from Africa in the 1800s but magically didn't start killing everyone until the 80s. Bullshit. The US is using Ukraine as an experiment, not just for their weapons, to study the effects of a country lost to an invasion in the long term. Refugees moving into Eastern Europe and America. And based on these findings, they'll probably come up with new plans for Taiwan, South Korea, and likely other NATO countries if they ever get invaded. No group of elite are conspiring to make world events tragedies, war, mayhem happen. It's worse than that. The elite are opportunists. They just stay well positioned to benefit from whatever happens. Natural disasters, Russian invasions, unrest in the Middle East, racial divide. They aren't orchestrating it. They're just ready to pounce when it happens. That conspiracy theorist was pushed as a pejorative term by groups which actually engage in conspiracy in order to paint whistleblowers as loonies. You can quickly peruse history and see that most of the major events that have shaped the modern world were a result of wealthy and powerful entities conspiring to enact their own visions and goals. I wouldn't go so far as to say I genuinely believe this really truly, but the simulation theory is really very convincing. It's effect at play, but I really do feel like the main character, and it's extremely difficult for me to conceptualize the surely true fact that literally everyone else feels the same way as I do. Any of y'all watched that new documentary series on Netflix? It's called American Conspiracy: The Octopus Murders. I knew next to nothing about any of it going in, but there are pretty strong cases to be made that there's definitely something there. At the very least, it's a reminder that the government has done some absolutely horrendous things. I think it's funny that people are okay with getting their information and data collected. I always hear I have nothing to hide. It is not about being innocent. It's about your data being used against you to manipulate you, your buying habits, or worse. It only has to fall into the wrong hands, which are the ones that are already collecting it. S-men, senators, state legislators, governors, attorneys general, and judges, in order to manipulate the tax code, skirt regulations, hide their money, and funnel taxpayer funds into their own pockets. It's not so much a conspiracy as much as what literally happens. Oil companies infiltrate, hack municipal traffic offices, and set red lights to last a tenth of a second longer. Extra HOB. Nobody ever notices 0.1 seconds. That multiplied by over 1 billion ICE vehicles idling for that fraction of a second more, and it adds up to billions of extra dollars in all executive pockets over the years. This sub has had 30 to conspiracy theory questions in the last week. Theory restricts senior on include over 18 on sort relevance T week. That averages more than once every 6 hours. Maybe there's a conspiracy to normalize conspiratorial thinking by spamming the topic S. There were many civilizations all over the world for 1,000 years before our supposed first civilization in the Indus Valley. I'm not saying crystal power or flying boats or anything, but the current theory of hunter-gatherer to urban planning with nothing in tea hold water in my mind. The US, UK, France, and Poland, to name a few, have been having for the last 10 years or so with conservative, nationalist movements have all been caused by the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service. Tikin flat eartherism in the early 2010s was a trial balloon by the IRA and other bad actors like Sean Bannon to basically understand virality and identify how to isolate and brainwash an audience. They put those lessons into practice to produce the MAGA movement of 2016 into now. It's richer than everyone else and also make it so they can't lose their money unless the rich asshole club decided to throw certain people, anyone who defies them, or they just don't like, under the bus. Build-A-Bear came out with a bunch of new toys that were all the same shade of yellow right after their Minion launch severely underperformed. They had stockpiled yellow fabric in anticipation of the Minion toys selling well and getting a big production run, and had to find a way to use it all. QT has major dirt on Trump and has him by his wrinkly little balls. This is also why so many fascist Congress members are against aid for Ukraine. QT threatened them that he would out their grotesque orange Beizus if they support it. No proof, of course, but a Cam's razor and all. Our gov knew 9/11 was going to happen, and let it happen, so we could go to war in the Middle East. The reason I believe this, it's been documented that the US knew the Japanese were coming to attack Pearl Harbor, yet let it happen, so the Gulf would have the public's support to end to WWI. CIA killed Kennedy. James Earl Ray didn't kill MLK. The tear gas ignites the compound of the Branch Davidians at the Waco siege. The flight that crashed in a field on 9/11 was shot down. That's really about it. Other than that, I'm a pretty liberal guy who's skeptical of most conspiracies.